Do graveyards scare you? Do jack-o'-lanterns make you nervous? Do monsters come out at night? If they do, it's just Halloween. It's all part of the fun. I'll take that off. So, let's see here. Alright? So, Halloween is a great, fun, exciting holiday we celebrate in the United States and other countries. The history of Halloween is very rich in tradition. There's a lot going on with Halloween, and it started way back in early times in the Celtic land. So back where England, Ireland, Scotland is where Halloween really originated. And it originated as a festival where it was the end of the harvest season. The farmers had just finished bringing in all the crops, and it was moving into wintertime. Now the Celtic people believed that the spirits would come out one night a year and walk among the living. And that was not a good thing, right? I wouldn't want a ghost coming alongside me either. So what they did is they would light big bonfires and they would disguise themselves so that the spirits couldn't catch them, so that the spirits wouldn't recognize them. And so the name of this feast was called Samhain. And that was a Gaelic term. Gaelic is the language of the ancient Irish people. And so Samhain was the festival where they did that. And Samhain is really the foundation of today's Halloween. As we went through the centuries, the Celtic people were overtaken by the Romans, and during that time, the Christian and the Catholic Church really spread throughout the land at that point. They viewed the Samhain festival as a pagan ritual, so they really didn't like it very much. So they created a holiday called All Saints' Day that would be celebrated on November 1st. But the night before, some of the old Samhain and pagan rituals of Halloween still persisted on, and that was nicknamed All Hallows Eve, which eventually became shortened to Halloween. Okay, and that's what we know it as today. So you can see Halloween has been around for a very long time. I mean, this occurred probably in the 15th to 16th century, so a very long time ago. As we think about one of the most common phrases associated with Halloween is called trick or treat. And you can trace the beginnings of trick or treat back to the early 15th century as well. This originated with a custom called souling. Okay, you had your soul inside of you. And what people would do is they would go house to house on All Saints' Day, knock on the door, and ask for soul cakes. And if you got the most soul cakes, that means your relatives who had passed on would be guaranteed a better future in the afterworld. So that started the whole concept of trick-or-treating, the soul cakes concept. And this concept of Halloween and Samhain and trick-or-treating was actually brought to the United States for the first time in around the 1840s. When there was a really large Irish population that came to the United States because of a very large potato famine in Ireland that nearly killed half of the residents of Ireland at that time. So a big population of Irish folks came to the United States and started really the Halloween tradition in the United States. So where are we today with Halloween? Halloween today, you heard you saw some good videos on how crazy Black Friday can be, but Halloween today is the second most profitable holiday in the United States. Last year, Americans spent $6 billion on Halloween-related items. Costumes, masks, decorations, pumpkins, all kinds of things. And so you can see, this is just an example of one store, but these seasonal Halloween stores will just pop up. And they'll only be open for about 2 months, but they will sell thousands of dollars of products. Okay? So very, very profitable. Today, Halloween is celebrated in the United States, in Canada, in New Zealand, in Australia, and more recently it's actually extended its reach more globally into some of the Pacific Rim area, into Japan, into South America, and hopefully after today, here in Costa Rica. So when we talk about Halloween, there's a lot of fun games that are associated with Halloween. Bobbing for apples is a big one. Apples are very important in the fall season because they get harvested around October, the time frame of Halloween. And so what happens is you put a bunch of apples in a bucket of water, you hold your hands back and you put your head in and try to grab an apple, and you get very wet, and it's usually cold water, but it's a lot of fun. And so bobbing for apples is very popular. Has anybody done bobbing for apples? Oh, yeah, see, there's a couple guys. Okay. Another popular one with the kids especially is something called the mummy wrap. And this is funny because you have a contest to see who can wrap their team member up in toilet paper the fastest, so they look like a mummy. And so my kids are a big fan of that one, and we end up wasting a lot of paper, but it's still a lot of fun, and then I like to watch them walk around. It's kind of fun. And then, of course, pumpkin carving is incredibly important. We have a huge industry in pumpkins in the United States. It's a really big crop, especially around this time of year. And pumpkin patches, because it's not a pumpkin field, they call it a pumpkin patch. And people will go through the pumpkin patch and pick their pumpkin right off the vine and go and pay for it. And then you carve a face on it, which is what we call a jack-o'-lantern. So when you carve a face on the pumpkin, it's a jack-o'-lantern. Now, like the rest of Halloween, jack-o'-lanterns are a tradition as well. The story goes, back in Ireland, there was a gentleman whose name was Jack, and he tricked the devil a couple of times, and to make a long story short, he had to find his way back from the devil's house, and it was dark, and he couldn't do it, and he had no way to find it. So he actually found a turnip, which is kind of like a root vegetable, found a turnip, cut a hole in it, and put a hot coal in so it could light its way like a lantern. So it was called a jack-o'-lantern. When the Irish immigrants came to the United States, they didn't have turnips in very good numbers, but they had a lot of pumpkins, so they just used the pumpkins instead, and that's what's become the jack-o'-lantern. Now, jack-o'-lantern carving has become quite a competition and quite popular. And here's a couple of interesting examples of jack-o'-lanterns. So people get very skilled at carving these. This is one of my favorites here. I've done one of those before. Those are kind of fun. And actually, this one right here, I carved. So I did that one. And so it's very fun. I was just talking with my children this morning, and we're actually going to carve our pumpkins on Sunday when I get home. So I'm really looking forward to that. So those are the jack-o'-lanterns. You can see they're a lot of fun. Now, Halloween wouldn't be Halloween without the foods associated with the holiday. First and foremost, it's candy. Any kind, every kind, lots and lots of candy. When the kids go trick-or-treating, they don't go trick-or-treating with a small bag. They go trick-or-treating with a pillowcase. Okay? And they fill that pillowcase with candy. We end up throwing away a lot of it after a month or so, but they get a lot of candy. So that's a big piece of it. Candy corn, I don't know if you have this down here, but it's a very sugary snack, and it's pure sugar. It's little solid. I wish I had some that I could pass around. I looked for it, I couldn't find any. But it's a very popular candy. I actually mix it with cashews and other peanuts, so you get kind of a sweet, salty snack. It's really good. So candy corn is a very popular and associated with Halloween. Pumpkin peeps. So peeps are kind of a phenomenon we have in the United States. It's a marshmallow treat that is shaped like a pumpkin and stuck in lots of other sugar. So you can see lots of sugar, lots of goodness, lots of gooiness. And then finally we have candy apples. And so it's just that regular apple with this nice candy shell around it, or you could have caramel around that as well. So a lot of good foods associated with Halloween, all very sweet and all very yummy. And the dentist really likes to see us after Halloween. So this is a little bit, you dress up for Halloween, right? That's part of the tradition. So these are some Halloweens of my family in the past. You can see my wife Lori and myself. I know I'm looking pretty happy in that picture. I don't know if I would want to cross myself in a dark alley there. Kind of a scary looking guy. And then we have my children there. I'm dressed up as the Wolfman in that one as well. And then down at the bottom here, we've got my son who's the banana, Mackenzie who's dressed up as a witch, and these are my nieces and nephews dressed up as other costumes as well. So costumes in the United States for Halloween are very, very diverse. They can be anything from ghosts and monsters and goblins, which is what they started out to be. But nowadays, you get into a lot more pop culture costumes as well. So you can see costumes of our president, you can see costumes of Michael Jackson, you can see costumes of just about anything you can imagine. Okay? And the good thing is you can either go to a costume store and buy it, or you can make one yourself. I'm a big fan of making costumes because they don't cost as much money. And there's a lot of great websites out there. If you just Google free costumes or how to make costumes, you can find a whole list of resources in what you want to make. And even, for this one, I just had a t-shirt with a ghost on it, a black cape, and some crazy makeup. So, it doesn't have to be that expensive, but it's always a lot of fun. So Halloween at the Fowlers is always a good time, always a lot of fun. You can see we've got the house decorated. I've got a big spider web with lots of lights and lights all over the place. I usually have a fog machine, so it looks like there's smoke coming out. And sometimes I'll dress up as a scarecrow and sit on the porch and scare kids when they come up. So it's a big deal for us. It's a big deal for our neighborhood, and I'm glad that I was able to share some of that with you today. But I do want to leave you with a gift and something that potentially could help plant the seed for Halloween here in Costa Rica. So what I have today is an opportunity for you to practice. To practice this age-old tradition of Halloween. I have a Halloween bag for each of you, if you guys could help me pass this on. And what I need for you to do is come up to me and say trick or treat, and I will give you something. There you go. While the boys are doing that, if you have any questions about Halloween, I'm happy to answer those. Yeah, they're in the front of my backpack. There should be like 50 of them.
Mike, how long have you been out?
Sorry. Go ahead.
How long have you been doing celebrating this?
Ever since I was a baby. I know my parents carried me around dressed as a pumpkin when I was a baby. So I know that I have been celebrating this holiday my whole life. It's something I do. Any other questions on Halloween? Oh, I'm afraid.